On this episode of the Layover Live, Veronica Williams stops by to talk upcoming changes to Apple email. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 165 of the Layover Live, where we bring you the top article from the Layover each week. I'm Jason Swick, VP of Strategy and Insights, and welcome to this week's show. Super happy to have you here. We're talking about email marketing this week, and our article of the week this week comes from Oracle, where it's talking about some upcoming changes to Apple's ecosystem. Now, as destination marketers, one of the key channels of success that we use in nurturing a better relationship with our audience is email marketing. And one of the main metrics that many of us use and rely on to measure our engagement and overall messaging is that of open rates. Now, when an open rate is high, which for the industry right now is about 18% on average, that can mean that our subject lines did their job in attracting engagement and pulling in readers to consume our content. It can also be a good indicator that we are sending emails at the right time of the day, or even that our subscribers are eagerly awaiting our content. Now, when your open rates conversely are lower or underperforming, it can be a sign that your audience isn't even reading your content, or even worse, that it's dated and your list even needs to be scrubbed. But privacy change is in the air. We had Zeke Coleman on last week to talk about some of these things as it relates to privacy in advertising. And the same thing is happening now as updates are changing our ability to measure metrics like this with some new updates that are going to be coming from Apple. Now, at Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference about a month back, the company announced some new privacy features that we're going to be rolling out this fall. And so with that, I wanted to bring in our resident email marketing expert, Ms. Veronica Williams, to discuss how this might affect DMOs and what they can do now to help hedge against these changes. So Veronica, once again, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason. Great to talk with you. Hope you're doing good.
I am doing well. Hope you are doing well the same. We'll see after some of these changes are going. Again, there's still a lot of unknown, but I wanted to bring you in because you have such a great handle on what's happening as it relates to email marketing and marketing automation. And as I mentioned, we talked to Zeke Coleman last week, who provided a really good insight, and this guy always does, around measurement and what's happening with Apple, as well as deprecation of cookies. But I want to get into email now and talk about Apple and what they announced at their Worldwide Developer Conference about this upcoming rollout of some of the new privacy features that are going to affect email. So maybe first and foremost, let's just share those. What's happening?
Oh, sure, definitely. Well, with the release coming up in between September and November, iOS 15 is going to introduce mail privacy protection. And that's going to entail three different parts. The first part will turn off open tracking. The second will hide your IP address. And the third will hide your email address. Now, the last two are going to be part of the iCloud Plus subscription. But just to let you know, with these changes, DMOs additionally are going to not be able to figure out or identify the type of Apple client. So they're not going to know if things are open on desktop or iPad or iPhone.
Yeah, so some significant changes, right? Apple's now, drawing their line in the sand. Again, as you mentioned, one of these is coming with just a free client. The other ones are coming through a paid subscription, which may or may not affect people all that much. But let's get into who it's going to affect then. So maybe get into then, Veronica, a little bit about who exactly these changes are going to affect.
Yeah, definitely. So any users that open their email either on desktop Apple Mail or Apple Mail on their iPhone or iPad are going to be affected. However, this won't affect people that maybe use Gmail or Outlook. And, to kind of get an idea of this impact, according to Litmus, their market share shows that across all of Apple devices, they share about 46%. So that's pretty big amount of people. And thinking about the number of people that it's going to affect, if we look back at Apple's iOS 14 update, where it allowed users to opt out of having apps track you, that had a 96% adoption rate. So we're really thinking that these new mail protection changes are going to be highly adopted as well.
Yeah, something we'll have to keep an eye on. Again, them having about half the market share out there is pretty significant. So we'll have to see how that's going to affect users. I know they're already testing in some areas as well. We, as you and I were chatting and preparing for the show, you shared some screenshots around people who are already testing some of this out and how they're doing this, and it's really like, hey, do you want us to track or not track? And the way it's worded, we'll have to wait and see as adoption. Hopefully is not as high as it was with some of the other updates that they've made, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. But I want to get now into more specifically. We talked about what's happening at a macro level. We talked about who this might affect, but really let's drill down into what this maybe means then for destination marketers. We've heard and we made mention already about the effect on open rates pretty considerably. So what else is going on here? Explain this a little bit more in detail.
Sure. To get into more details about maybe the open rate side, what's going to happen, what people are finding so far with their beta testing is that Apple's going to receive the email when it gets sent, and then it's going to route the email through a couple different proxies before delivering it. And how this will affect the email portion is when they do that, they're going to be downloading tracking pixels. So the part that tells us that emails were open. So to ESPs, email service providers like at Dawn, it's going to look like everybody opened their email. So it'll have 100% open rate, but it's going to show a lot of false opens because we know not everybody is going to open it all the time. Right. But click rates, thankfully, are not going to be affected at all. So you'll still be able to get accurate click rates. When we think about specifically some marketing activities that will be affected that use open rate, we think about re-engagement campaigns, send time optimization, deliverability monitoring, and A/B testing.
Yeah, so definitely going to have some effect on marketers that way. Good to hear that it's not affecting clicks and things of that nature, which is really important. So then what I want to talk about then is maybe the best way then that you recommend, I mean, you work in this space all the time, of ways that might help, destination marketers out there kind of navigate these changes that are happening in the landscape. So what are maybe a few tips and strategies, Veronica, that you could share that DMOs should consider to help navigate these waters?
Yes, definitely. I think at the lowest amount of effort, they need to definitely keep track and keep their eye on the news and updates of how things are progressing. Because as we know, at any time, Apple can make changes because people are just beta testing right now. So they want to keep an eye on the news. Another thing would be to run a device report from their email service provider, letting them know what their Apple market share is. And if they're an act-on client, all they have to do is reach out to their marketing automation specialist, and we'll run those for them. So it's just a quick report. Another thing to do is right now, kind of look at your own click rate, click-through rate, and click-to-open rate. Those are going to be two really great benchmarks to use going forward to find out, how your email is doing. Another way is to create something called an open segment. This open segment grabs all of your non-Apple Mail clients, and it gives you a place to look to try to get a benchmark for your open rates when you send an email, because that'll be a good representation of everybody besides your Apple people. Some other things you can do is create an engagement segment, and traditionally engagement segments are based on opens. But for this moving forward, it's good to look at other things like website visits, form submissions, or email clicks. So just trying to set different benchmarks moving forward.
Yeah, really good stuff. I love the advice of just benchmarking where you're at today, right? I think that's a smart idea. I think it's a good idea. I think it's something that DMO should have already been doing, hopefully. And if not, it's definitely something to work on with you and others on the team, Veronica. If they haven't done that already, I think it helps us to then maybe even build things like correlations between differences in other providers and how that affects Apple. That might be something to keep an eye on. And listen, privacy is a good thing. These changes are happening for good reasons. We're going to find better and additional ways to measure things. More, you could argue that open rates are absolutely very important, but looking at the content is only telling part of the story. What we really want is for people to engage and click through and hit our websites or whatever other desired actions that we have. And so although open rates are going to be affected by this, it's not across all providers, which you mentioned, but clicks, visits to a website, things of that nature are more important. And there'll be additional metrics that we're going to want to look at along the way as this evolves. So keeping an eye on the news and updates is also great advice. So thanks for coming on and sharing with that information with us. I also want to make mention that, Veronica, you guys have done a really good job of putting kind of a guide together. We had a recent blog post that marketing shared, but we also have a guide that you can download that I think will really, really help you with just some overall information about how it's going to happen. And then naturally, we'll be doing things along the way to kind of keep everybody informed. Like, we're taking a positive approach to this. I think, again, in the end, this will be good. There'll be a little disruption in the beginning, as it is always, but as destination marketers, we always get through it. And so, Veronica, thank you for coming on and sharing some of this insight.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I really enjoyed talking about it. So thank you.
You bet. It's our pleasure. And if you're not subscribed, please do so now. We really appreciate it. It helps out the channel, as well as subscribing on Spotify and iTunes if you want to consume us through audio podcast. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time, and have a great day.